Okay, so I have my space set up to start my build. Um, the bottom piece I have kind of separate. It's still covered because I'm going to have to add that coil flange to it. So I'm just kind of making sure that these are similar moisture levels. And they are what I call like soft leather hard. They're not super, super flimsy, but they're still able to be moved a little bit. And then I want you guys to make sure that you know like what sides you're supposed to bevel. You should have a worksheet marked down. For me, I just put a little highlighter on all the sides that I need to bevel. And we'll go ahead and just start with that. Now this video is kind of at a weird angle. So what I'm going to do is just kind of, sorry, I'm showing you a little bit like sideways, but you will get the gist. So let me just kind of, when I cut, I like to cut on a slab mat that I can rotate. So, you know, I kind of have this bigger slab mat underneath, but I like to make sure things are flat and then be able to rotate my slab mat. So I have this form. So the bottom is going to stay at a 90 degree, and then all these other edges are going to be beveled. The top is not beveled, I don't believe. So we'll look and I'll double check on that when we get there. But so just remember, you guys are going to start at a 90 degree and then kind of like turn your knife at an angle. You want to make sure that as you're cutting, you can see the tip of the knife and that you're keeping kind of a consistent beveled edge. So I'm going to go ahead and just watch that knife tip. Cut nice and slow, take your time. And it's, you know, if you need to practice on a scrap piece of clay prior to building, then go ahead and roll out a small slab and go ahead and practice your bevels. Remember, I like to keep my thumb at the end so that I can know where I'm stopping and just peel away this extra. So just spend some time doing some beveling here. Rotate so it's comfortable for me. Sometimes I like to stand up when I'm beveling. So feel free to stand up if you feel kind of confined. Okay, so when you're moving your pieces, just try to keep them as flat as possible. I'll go ahead and bevel this one. So these two. Yeah, these two are beveled on all sides. Okay, this one is only beveled on the two long sides. I'm going to use this clay for my coil, so I need to kind of get it under some plastic. And 2 more left. And then this little guy is beveled on all sides. So he's going to look quite a bit different. He's so small. I'm going to do the 2 long sides first, and then I'll do the short side. The smaller the pieces, the kind of harder it is to make sure your bevel is straight. So keeping that thumb there really helps. So I do have a little bit of movement there, but that's kind of what that piece, is going to look like with the 4 beveled edges. Okay, so we are ready to start assembly. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to dunk this little guy in water so he stays wet until I need him, because I don't have my spray bottle in here. Okay, so usually I like to have my turntable handy. I might not start off with that right away. I do have a wear board if needed, but I'm going to start to build here on this slab mat. Let me see if I can kind of get the angle of this. I'll probably mess it up. Oops, hit myself. Something like that might be good. Okay, so as we're starting, we're going to have, I like to start by putting the 2 sides together. And you guys can kind of see how those beveled edges are going to like go together. So I'm going to work on kind of keeping them as flat as possible. I'm going to work on slipping and scoring these edges. Do not forget to slip and score. And I kind of suggest you don't overslip, because, you just need a little bit. The more slip you get on it, the more it's going to slide around. And so you can see I'm not like getting it super overly slipped. And I'm going to go ahead and do both sides while I'm at it while it's flat, just to make sure. It's easier to do it while it's flat than when it's upright sometimes. But I'm going to wait on these edges though, just for a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make sure it's sitting level. And usually I kind of start like from the bottom, and I'm just going to give it what I call like a finger tack first, where I'm trying to get it like into place. I don't know that my angle is going to be perfectly square yet. So for right now, what I'm going to do is just kind of tack that into place so it's standing. And I'm going to try to get, my pieces, at least 3 of my sides on before I start to do much assembly. Get a little bit more slip on that. Okay. So kind of at this point, I'm ready to transfer it to a wear board. So I'm just going to move this bottom piece in my extra clay. Sorry guys, cover those up. That way I can work on the turntable and not have to like pick it up a lot. So the wear boards, you know, for storing, but it's also for when you're building pieces that you don't have to continue to pick them up, because the more you pick them up, the more at risk you are of, you know, breaking your connections or having something go down that shouldn't. So, all right, let me get this camera adjusted so you guys can see a little bit. Okay, so now it's nice. I can kind of go around and I can like check my edges before I really commit, you know, to a firm. If your edges seem to be kind of like not totally matching up, you guys can use your fingers or a rib tool to kind of smooth that. I'll kind of show you what that looks like, because I'm having some issues over here with that kind of not looking the best. What I usually do first is I use a wooden tool of sorts. I don't care. I'll use this one. And again, I'm going to kind of use my fingers, not trying to make a lot of marks, but get that some good connection. If you connect it really well, you don't really have to put a coil on the inside, but reinforcing a coil on the inside, which you'll see here in a little bit, is good to do. So I'm going to pull some of this clay, you know, from the high side over. So you're going to be making a little bit of tool marks. Anytime you guys have to pull the clay or move it, it's going to be making, you know, marks. It connecting is first and cleaning is second. So get it connected. Don't worry about the marks. You know, try to minimize the marks. But I know right there that I have now made a solid connection, and then it's going to be easy for me to go back in. Where's my sponge? With my sponge and a rib tool, and so I can get a little moisture on there. Really try to make the edge nice, clean it up. And I like to use, please tell me I brought a rib tool. Yeah, I didn't. I got this one will work. So a straight edge of a rib, and I can kind of move up that seam and get it level, you know, with that side again. So not perfectly clean, and I've got some things to do on the bottom connection down here, but I'm going to try to get just a general connection before it starts to firm up too much. Oops, got too much stuff in my way. Again, I call this finger tacking. It's just kind of a light, you know, press together. Figuring out how to minimize those edges from top to bottom. Okay. This edge is coming together pretty nicely. Kind of feel like I'm going to be able to kind of just go in with a rib tool. You got to watch your balance on these. Okay. So first of all, I'll try to square it up, and then I can see where I need to do my smoothing to get rid of that joint. So I'm going to pull this over. Just a light little scrape. It doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, just aggressive enough for you guys to be able to get rid of the lines or the shadows that you're seeing. You can move it in multiple directions. I mean, if you had a gap, you could actually fill it with a little bit of clay if you needed to. Okay, so that's looking pretty connected there. And that's a nice edge. That one looks a lot nicer than the other edge as of right now. I'm going to come back in here. Want my edges to look pretty crisp if possible. Now usually on the upper part, I don't want to tip it too much actually. You guys can see maybe here, I don't know if you can see in this edge, there's kind of like a little bit of a gap. So maybe you can see it better from the inside. So a lot of times I'll try to come in here with some sort of a pencil or like the end of a paintbrush like this. And I'm going to go ahead and close that gap with a tool. Okay, kind of just clean that up. Now on the interior here, there's a couple different things we could do. We can add a reinforcer coil, or we can come in, if it's got a pretty good connection and it seems like it's pretty solid, we can just come in with a tool and kind of close that by supporting the outside of it so it doesn't move and bend, and then just kind of really compressing that, you know, not with a ton of pressure, but until you see like the cracks go away. Okay, so I actually feel like that's a pretty good connection. I don't think I'm going to reinforce that one with the coil. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to add that other side. So let's get, whoops, make sure you're careful, don't tip. I almost knocked mine over. So we're going to go ahead and score these two sides. I'm going to reinforce a little bit more slip on here. Make sure everything's looking nice and straight. Because once we kind of enclose this, this is when it's kind of harder to, you know, to reach inside and to pick it up. So we want to try not to pick it up if possible. Just try to work by standing up, reaching in, and then we can pick it up when it's a little bit firmer, more at the leather hard stage, but we still have to be super careful because they will snap easily. If you set it down too hard as it's drying, you know, it's easy the walls to snap. You just got to treat it very gently. Be smart about gravity. Okay, let's get a little bit more slip here just to get that connection going again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stand up on this one. Hopefully I'm not... Okay, make sure it's centered. So hopefully this piece should square up the form. And when you sit it on, you'll see there might be some gaps because the walls haven't, you know, they're not sitting at a total 90-degree angle yet. So I'm going to do a little finger tacking there and a little finger tacking here, looking at it from above. And I can really nicely see on the inside how all this is going to go together. Sometimes students like to use a pony roller, which I don't have one in here. I'm in my art office right now, but sometimes they like to use a pony roller to go up the edge. And that's something you guys could ask me about. Okay, put a tad bit of water on that. And so I feel like it's pretty squared up. I'm just going to go back in and carefully, again, try to finger tack or push together these edges in a nice way that I'm not leaving too many fingerprints. Okay, and get back to, might do a little rib right here, get it squared up from both sides. Okay, you can see how that's already kind of closed it up pretty nicely. And come in here and really figure out how to get rid of those seams that we're seeing. Working it back and forth a little bit. these bottom edges are going to have to be underneath here that we can't see, are going to have to be connected at some point when it's safe to pick the form up. But right now it's really probably not a good idea for me to pick this up. I might be able to like drag it to the edge of my wear board and slide it, you know, and look at the bottom, which is probably what I would do is when I'm done building, maybe just slide it over till it's hanging over, clean it up. Get that little lump of clay off there. I'll get that off there later. I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy seamed up. That was some slip that came through there. Getting all kinds of little things from the art office. If you get like little fuzzies or something, they'll burn out. That kiln is hot, so right around 2200 degrees. So anything organic burns out long before the end of the firing. So don't you worry about that. Okay, so I've got my 4 sides now pretty good. I'm going to go back inside from above, and I'm going to try to make sure this interior beveled edge is again reinforced where I don't see a lot of shadows. That's very important so that it doesn't fall apart on you. And again, most of you might be using coils to reinforce. Depending on how straight your cuts are, you know, if you're seeing shadows, you're going to need to reinforce it with a coil possibly. And that's something that will be shown in the live demo. Okay, I'm going to kind of just try to lift this and see if I can show you guys what the inside looks like. If I can get this to tilt. Oh, it's heavy. Hopefully you can kind of see those edges. Okay, back to the last few pieces, and then I'll be ready to stop this, and the next video will be on how to do your image transfer. So you guys can see this will fit right in here. Okay. And then the other piece, see how that fits pretty nicely like that? So you want to make sure you're kind of double checking how things fit. There might be one way that fits a little bit better than the other, you know, as your bevels are. So, and then that last piece is just going to kind of slide right on in there like that. And I'll have to maybe cut that down a little bit more to slide down in there. We'll see after I get it connected. So, go ahead and start with this piece. You guys may have to, depending on the moisture level in the air, you may have to spray down a little bit while you're building. I know it's pretty dry in here today, so mine's already setting up pretty quickly. I'm going to go ahead and score both sides so I don't move as much once I get that other piece connected. I'm not moving my slabs. This is definitely my favorite scoring tool, but I only have one of them. So those serrated ribs and stuff are good. You just have to put on your slip separately. So I think in this case, I'm going to go ahead and get this one connected really good from the inside. It's going to be harder to get the second piece fully connected because you guys know we're not going to be able to reach in there, right? So we're just going to do our best to problem solve through that and make sure things aren't, coming apart. So I got a pretty good connection in there. You guys can always, take a paintbrush. Usually I use not a fan brush, but that's the only one I have in here right now, and kind of clean up those connections if you want to. So we are going to have some negative space in this, so we will see some of the inside. So you want to make sure everything people are seeing looks nice, right? So I'm trying to follow the profile of this and just make sure that I'm getting these edge lines to look really nice. Working on both flat angles, kind of compressing. Again, sometimes when you guys are tooling, you're going to, again, make some marks that you may not like the way they look. Just try to minimize how much mark making you're doing and just really try to refine that surface so it looks the way you want it to. Like right here, I'm going to have a little issue. I have to pull some of this clay over because that side's not quite matching up as nicely as I like. So sometimes we have to fudge it a little bit. That little corner. Okay. So I'm going to try to refine with water and rib tools to get this looking better. I always try to not use so much water that it's shiny. I want to get that thing off. It's driving me nuts. Come on. All right, it's got the best of me. I've got to get that little thing out of there. Okay, got most of it anyway. And I might even go back in on this one and build this corner up a little bit because that's bugging me that corner edge is. I'm hoping this line looks pretty clean right here. So I can go back with my flat edge tool and try to reinforce all this. That might even fix up this little corner. I'll put a little piece in here and see if I can build that up a little bit. You want your surface to be like as smooth and clean as possible throughout your build. The Mishima and the image transfer, that we're getting ready to do, they do work better, when you have your surface is prepped and ready for that, and you're not trying to, make it look clean after you have materials or image transferred onto it. So, and I'm going to make sure you can come in from the inside too and make sure that things are sitting the way you want them to. Okay, So I already had that other side slipped and scored. I'll do this quickly. And again, since it's been a bit since I put some slip on there, I'm going to kind of just reapply a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So this is looking pretty good. Luckily, I'm still able to reach in from the top, you know, and do a little bit of finger tacking. This piece is probably, I'd say, one of the more difficult ones to get fully attached. I do plan on going to the inside and cleaning that seam up, but not until I feel safe flipping it like carefully. So more like the leather hard stage. I'm kind of pulling the clay from the top somewhat down into this side. And this corner is going to need a little bit of refining. Okay. Definitely need a little water on this. Get that kind of smooth on all these sides. And then I'm going to go back with my rib tool and work the planes, trying to make sure that it looks, you know, as flat as possible. Get rid of the little bumpy edges. So I'll just kind of hold that parallel to the form. And there goes the bell. As you guys can see, as I'm scraping through, you know, things become a little bit neater looking. Probably going to have to cut this demo short here in a minute because I do have a class coming in. And so that last piece, I'll just drop it down in there and attach it and kind of seam it. But we'll see if I can get that at least started so you guys can see how that last piece works. It may be one that we have to kind of finagle a little bit and cut down. But what I'm looking for, you know, hopefully in a strong piece here when you guys get done is that your edges don't show, you know, cracking. Your form looks nice and level and neat. So take as much time as you need to refine. It's not a race to the finish. You know, let's make some good work and take our time and do it the right way. Okay. And I will be able to possibly sneak my brush inside here and get a little bit of this seam connected, which, yeah, that seems to be working before I attach this last piece. Okay, so let's see how this guy's gonna go. Yeah, he's gonna sit in there pretty nicely. I'm gonna maybe sharpen that beveled edge a little bit before I sit it down, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'll get him connected and I'll come back to you guys, but I will get you another video on surface design. All right, thanks.